Hi, I'm John Little, and this is the ShockCast. Normally for Friday, March 9th, 2018, but today it's March 10th. And tomorrow is the anniversary for 3/11, which was the Fukushima tsunami that happened in Japan. My wife and I were here in Taipei when that happened, and it was interesting because it was a month before my wake up. We'll see what happens next week, in the coming days, because who knows, maybe I'll get a chance to write about my views on what happened at that time. But anyway, we're going to talk about something a little bit different today. Oh, and the other thing, just as a technical issue, we're doing some experimenting, or should I say, I'm doing some experimenting. We're talking about, you'll see the resolution of, or I'm recording this on 1920 by 1080. Normally I record it at a lower resolution, so you might see some dropped frames, but we're experimenting. We're trying to improve. Anyway, today we're going to talk about what I wrote yesterday, the ticking turkey time bomb. And of course, as I read this is Mrs. Little's first chance to actually hear what I wrote. Just saying. If this was about ticking turkeys, I would be doing humor. But this is about Turkey, and it's not funny. Turkey is rapidly turning into more and more of a menace. They are a brutal country that has already massacred millions of Christians, and they're adding to that list of murders every day. The problem is that Turkey is supposedly an ally of Europe and the US, and they are quickly being forced to make a choice between the West and Islam. Want to bet on their choice? No? Well, you're smarter than you look. Sorry. Yes. This is all about the rise of Gog and Magog. That alliance is rising. And with it, the threat of Ezekiel's fire. I've been forced to do a lot of traveling, something that Mrs. Little thought that she could join me in, but little did she know that when she married me, I don't like to travel. No, don't like is too light of a phrase. A better word is despise. Yes, I despise traveling. But I always try to find something that I like about the places that I've been forced to go to. And I've always found something to like about every society and culture that I've spent time in. I like Britain, Cyprus, Greece, and Jordan. I've been to other places, but those are the 4 countries I think I like the best, outside of my favorite country, Israel. And I wouldn't complain much if I were forced to live in those countries. But Turkey? I've spent a lot of time in Turkey, and you couldn't pay me enough to live there. There is a brutal darkness in the Turkish soul, and I believe that its origins are in the horrifying massacres that this culture has inflicted upon Christians and other non-Muslims. And the fact that they are more and more violent, well, or should I say, more and more violently Muslim, is not helping. The biggest reason why Turkey has become so belligerent and dangerous is one man, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. I sometimes refer to him as Oink Erdogan, the foulest man in Asia, but I can't do that too often since I would need to apologize to pigs. And this man almost single-handedly has taken Turkey from being a secularist country to being a fundamentalist Muslim country. The process of moving to Islamic radicalism is not complete, but Turkey is barreling headlong into the Islamic abyss. Worse, Erdogan has manipulated Turkey into appointing him as president for life, and his megalomania has been the main source of our current problems with Turkey. Turkey's incursions into Syria, their threats over gas drilling in the Mediterranean Sea, and their move away from the EU and NATO are all a part of this desire by Erdogan to maintain his grip on power. If the coup attempt of July 15, 2016 had been successful, we wouldn't be talking about Turkey. But that attempt failed, and Erdogan has increased his maniacal efforts to turn Turkey into the ticking bomb that it has become. Take the growing conflict over the gas fields off the coast of Cyprus. Most people don't remember that Turkey invaded Cyprus in 1974, and the island of Cyprus is still divided. I even visited the DMZ that runs through Nicosia. Everyone has condemned this invasion and takeover of northern Cyprus, and therefore Turkey cannot claim any of the natural gas that is going to be extracted from the sea floor around Cyprus. And that has Oink Erdogan hopping mad. If you want a close look at Turkey's madness, here are a couple articles that I saw this week. Turkey threatens Exxon Mobil and U.S. Sixth Fleet off of Cyprus. U.S. Navy boosts Mediterranean presence as Exxon set to explore offshore Cyprus. U.S. closes embassy in Ankara following unspecified terror threat. And America isn't backing down. U.S. State Department recognizes Cyprus' right to develop resources in EEZ, or Economic Exclusion Zone, I believe. All of this is a very big deal, and it will not only get worse as time it will only get worse as time goes on. The world cannot allow Turkey to stop the drilling for natural gas around Cyprus. Otherwise, the system of international law would crumble, especially maritime law. Without a mutually respected system of laws governing our oceans, we would all be in a lot of trouble. The governments of the world know this, so they cannot let Turkey have its way. And they will go to war to stop Turkey if it doesn't back down. The problem is that Turkey and Oink Erdogan can't back down. Erdogan has married his future to Turkish nationalism in an effort to recreate the Ottoman Empire. He is neo-Ottoman to the core, and there is no way that he can allow himself to lose face by allowing all that natural gas wealth to slip through his greedy fingers. And let's not forget the Kurds. The Turks are terrified of the Kurds. They'll never admit that, and they'll throw you in jail if you mention it. But they are very, very afraid of the Kurds. After all, they make up 20% of Turkey, and the Turks have been oppressing the Kurds for a very, very long time. And for the first time, the Kurds see a chance to have their own country. They have national self-determination, and they're grabbing it with both hands. That is why Turkey has invaded Syria. Turkey has been able to slowly roll up Kurdish defenses in the Afrin province of Syria, but it has required the use of overwhelming firepower against the lightly armed Kurds. The Kurds are not giving up, and they are making the Turks pay for every inch of ground. The question is whether Turkey has demonstrated the weakness of their armed forces. The question is whether they can improve faster than the Kurds can innovate. The U.S. and Israel are doing their best to help, but there are limits. Overall, this means war. Lots of war. It will also mean that Turkey will turn to Russia and Iran to help keep the EU and the US off of its back. The loss of face in the Mediterranean will be too much for Erdogan, and that will only accelerate this realignment. And this realignment will mean only one thing: the coming of Gog and Magog. Up to now, Ezekiel 38 and 39 were just an intellectual exercise. The parsing together of the prophecies that speak of this massive alliance that will invade Israel has been something that didn't mean much to us personally. But that has changed. Turkey, Russia, and Iran are on the rise. Libya and Kush are making their own moves towards alliance with Russia. And Central Asia has always been in Russia's pocket. And for your own safety, you need to be paying attention to the alliance that is forming. Why? Because this war will bring Ezekiel's fire. That's a book I wrote. It's all about the massive solar flare, if you can call something that big just a solar flare, that will destroy the civilization, or most of it, that you and I rely on. Please, I hope that you can live without running water, electricity, and many of the accoutrements of our great civilization, or not so great civilization. A lot of people are going to die. Please be ready. Anyway, in terms of we had a few other things that we talked about this week. The first one is New World Order 2018, NAR, Dominionists, and the Luciferian New Age. It's a YouTube video. I believe that you need to pay attention to Tony of A Minute to Midnight, which is where this video comes from. What he is saying here is about a movement by false Christians and an attempt to subvert the church by Satan. The men and women doing this are deluded into thinking that they serve God, but that doesn't change anything, at least the claim that they're trying to serve God. Throughout the Bible, we have examples of many, many people who have been deluded into thinking that they serve God while they practice heresy. In fact, Jesus says that many will think that they serve God while they kill us. In fact, in John 16:2, it says, "They shall put you out of the synagogues," or assemblies. Really, synagogues doesn't necessarily mean just Jewish places of worship. It also means assembly places of any kind. Synagogues is another word for assembly. When you assemble yourselves together, a church is a synagogue. By definition, the word synagogue applies. So he's not speaking just of the Jews. "They shall put you out of the synagogues, yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God service." And that was a prediction that Jesus made for all of the past 2,000 years until the end. And I should say, the end that we're living in right now. The groups that, like the NAR, the New Apostolic Reformation, tell me that it will be, the rise of these groups, tell me that it will be like Christians who will be killing us. It will be like the persecutions made by the Catholic Church all over again. Millions of us will die at the hands of those who claim to follow Christ. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. But don't take my hope as a reason to avoid having to prepare. Christians, people who claim to be Christian, will kill us because we don't agree with them. And I believe that these NAR people will be a part of it. Another one, which was Mike from On Point Preparedness, he did this video called "The Hardest Prayer You'll Ever Pray." Mike is a fairly young Christian, according to the testimony that he's given, at least as I remember it, but he demonstrates a lot of spiritual maturity in this video. In this video, he speaks of the need to embrace persecution, of accepting it as a part of our life in Christ, and he makes this point in context with a video that he and 2 others made. I give a link to that other video, and I was reluctant to use that video for several reasons. 1, it was just really long. 2, they spoke in terms of the Great Tribulation and the coming of the Antichrist. And then 3, there were lots of feelings involved, and I'm a bit uncomfortable about presenting videos based on something so hard to pin down accurately. And Mike mentioned that he might produce a shortened version, which is what I was kind of hoping for. But please, you need to understand that the beast system is not ready yet. There really is a great catastrophe that will happen between now and then. I call it Ezekiel's fire, but you can call it anything else that you like. Other choices that I thought of was Zechariah's horses or Isaiah's sun. Anyway, too many of us have been going around saying that Jacob's trouble is the Great Tribulation and the Antichrist. It's not. Jacob's trouble is not the Great Tribulation. Jacob's trouble is connected to Gog and Magog and Ezekiel's fire, and it will rock the world. That is what Jacob's trouble is, and it's coming. Okay, well, there's another one. Look, over the last few weeks, we've been seeing Google involved in a purge of those who do not agree with their way of thinking, and of course I was caught up in that purge. And this other video was where to find your YouTubers. After having had one of my articles scrubbed from Google search results, I am also seeing what Google is doing in YouTube, which it also owns. They are scrubbing anyone and everyone who does not agree with their philosophy and religion. And yes, Google has a religion. So watch this YouTube video, and you will need to watch it with your eyes, or you will miss a part of the message. Why is Mandy Bombard doing this? Because this is the same Mandy that was doing the body language. Because YouTube automatically transcribes what is said on a video and then checks to see if it might violate their rules. Yes, it's the Google religion, and you are a heathen according to them. And all who violate Google's religion will be burned at the stake. Here's another, Stefan Molyneux goes through and talks about this as well. But let's skip over that. Sargon of Akkad, It's talking about the YouTube purge. Also, as I listen to this, I am struck by the attempt to fix YouTube and by extension Google. You cannot fix something that is evil. The people that were discussing this were wanting to talk about, fixing YouTube and fixing Google. You can't fix something this evil. So we need to get these things out of our heads. YouTube is evil. Or I should say, fixing YouTube, because YouTube is evil. I know that this is probably a bit of a shock, so I hope that you're sitting down when you read this or listen to this. But it's also true. So let me say it again. YouTube is evil. That will probably get me shut down by Google even more, but that's okay. My job is to point out evil. Now, am I saying that YouTube videos are evil or that the platform is evil? No. What I'm saying is that the people running YouTube are evil, and they cannot be reformed except by a miracle. And yes, salvation is a miracle. And it's not something that you can expect to happen to the leadership of YouTube. Anything is possible, but I try not to depend on things that are this or where the possibility is so low. To put it another way, evil is stupid, and you just can't fix stupid. But God can. I had another thing that, let's see. CNN goes after Infowars advertisers, and this was from the Daily Caller, not a video. Here's a thought. Let's boycott those who boycott Infowars. And here are the advertisers who did that. Nike, Moen, Expedia, Acer, ClassPass, Honey, Alibaba, and One Family. It's their right to do this. It's their right to boycott Infowars. But it's also our right to push back. So let's do that. Again, here are the people that you should probably be boycotting. Nike, Moen, M-O-E-N, assuming I've got that right, Expedia, Acer, ClassPass, Honey, Alibaba, and One Family. And no, I don't mean honey as in the honey, but apparently a company that's called Honey. Katie Hopkins. Now, this is an interesting one. It's what South African land expropriation really is about, YouTube. This is horrendous. Within 3 years, either all the white farmers will be driven off of their land in South Africa, or they will be killed. And this is from a police officer embedded within the South African police force. Just as Hitler preached genocide against the Jews and no one paid attention, so are African Hitlers preaching genocide against the whites, and no one is paying attention. When will the world wake up and stop the madness? When will we stop the insanity? Of course, those are foolish questions. The insanity will never stop, but only get worse. These are the last days. They were always going to be like this. Please pray for our brethren in South Africa. Here's one. Client Simons' Dark Night. Marc Morano, body slams climate agenda in new bestseller. Here's a quote. It's subtitled, Only One Rational Conclusion. After reading this book, there is only one conclusion a rational reader could possibly draw. Climate science is corrupt, wildly exaggerated, and a hoax propagated by a cabal of leftist elitists. The climate issue is the greatest distraction of our generation and among the most monumental wastes of resources in human history. Close quote. I have a friend who is a warmist. I'm thinking that this might be just the book for him. And I got this also from Client Depot. But anyway, it is let's see, what's the bestseller again? I think I missed it. Okay, anyway, this is a book by Marc Morano. So take a look for Marc Morano's books on Amazon, assuming that Amazon hasn't blocked him. But it looks like a really good book if you've got any friends that are warmists. It's going to get cold, guys. Here's another one. This one, in fact, this one got me extremely upset. Lithuanian government elite pedophile scandal. Don't watch that video if you're eating. You won't be able to finish eating. You will be truly sickened by the thought of what is going on in Lithuania and in your country. Think about this. Devin Stack put this video together to show just one tiny corner of the foulest evils possible. And I hate that word scandal, as if it was merely something embarrassing. But putting words like abomination and rape of innocent children just wouldn't get far with YouTube. There is a silver lining to this video that we have not seen elsewhere. Some brave Lithuanians took care of these foul, pedophile, child rapist criminals, and they did it themselves. I'm of two minds about this vigilantism. Taking the law into our own hands is not permitted to us as Christians. We aren't allowed to do something like this. But in a very small way, we might be allowed to feel a sense of relief that someone eliminated this evil in our midst. I'm deeply conflicted over this. My desire is to destroy with my own hands anyone and everyone that would do such heinous acts on a child. But I also know that God says that vengeance is His, that He will repay. All that I can do is pray for wisdom and that God will stop this horrendous evil. Well, I'm going to stop there. Tomorrow, if you can think of it, tomorrow is it's 3/11. Those of us in East Asia, we know what 3/11 means. Hopefully you'll think about that as well. There's an interesting video that I will, Lord willing, be presenting at the minimum next week. You might want to think of this as an allegory of our current and present time. Everything seems fine right now, but you've been hearing the warnings. People are standing around and looking amazed at some of the things that are happening to us right now. But they don't realize the implications. Eventually, the tsunami will hit us. But if you haven't reached higher ground by the time that happens, it might be too late. Again, this is John Little of Omega Shock, the ShockCast, for Saturday, March 10th. Have a good weekend.